All right, our first story that we will be covering today is Memphis and what's going on in Memphis. Now, we've known for a long time that Memphis is not safe, especially those of us who live around here and travel there regularly. I love Memphis, and I love going to Memphis. I love going to the theater in Memphis. I love to do the things in Memphis, but it has gotten unsafe anywhere you go. I mean, the two stories we're referencing right now is Eliza Fletcher. She was kidnapped early Friday morning while she was out on a jog, and it's not like she was jogging in an unsafe place, right, Jeff? She was jogging at the University of Memphis.
Right, and it was at a time where criminals should be asleep. Okay, like if you go out at 4:30 in the morning, you should be relative. You should think that you are relatively safe, but apparently not. Um, and yeah, so
Unfortunately, her body was discovered late Monday evening, and it's what most of us expected. And the worst part of it is this should not have been an issue with this person. The man that kidnapped her should have been behind bars. He shouldn't even been out terrorizing folks. Her kidnapper, he had recently gotten out of prison after serving 20 years for a previous kidnapping charge. He also had a juvenile record for sexual abuse. Like this guy had no business being on the street. And apparently he had gotten in trouble just the prior week with Memphis police. Like this guy was a continual menace to society, and we've got to do. I'm not going to say we've got to do better with our policing. I feel like policing isn't our problem. I think our problem is keeping criminals behind bars. I feel like the police are doing a pretty good job.
yeah, well, let's go ahead and because that was not the end of Memphis's woes this
No,
week.
no. Later on Wednesday, in an unrelated event, there was a 19-year-old man who went on a shooting spree about 1 o'clock. He ended up being apprehended about 6 a.m. And this guy too had a criminal record. He was released in March after serving 11 months of a 3-year sentence for attempted murder. And he just thought, hey, let me go in some random convenience stores and just shoot people.
Right. So, like, and we can get into a deeper conversation about just the problem with crime, the country over, and it's not being prosecuted correctly, intentionally, it seems. But in these situations, yeah, there were both of these horrendous crimes were committed by people who should not have been in public, who should have already been behind bars. Eliza Fletcher was a tragic story that everybody and I don't really even care to talk about the fact that she was heiress to a billionaire's
Yeah,
kid.
we could talk about all that. Yeah, there's plenty of conspiracy theories running around about did her husband hire this guy to do this, that, that. We're not going to get into those weeds. I feel like that's an unnecessary conversation. Those facts will come out as the investigation continues.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
not even aware of the criminal having been aware of this information. This just, so far as I'm aware, seems like a predator um, kidnapped someone, abducted her, and brutally murdered her. Um, and we also didn't mention that the shooting spree that occurred, part of it was live streamed on Facebook, um,
yeah,
which just tells you what a lot of these people are after, um, as far as just fame and
infamy. To,
recognition.
to be to be famous at any cost, to have 15 seconds of fame. And so just so their name can get blasted over the news stations and um, media is not helping with that, with doing backgrounds and retrospectives on these people and their tragic lives up to this point. I, I'm sure they probably did have some difficulties in their lives. That does not excuse the behavior, therefore it does not need to be talked about.
Right. So that's the surface level conversation. These are horrendous acts that were performed by, subhuman people, that just dirtbags, and that we could talk about that until the cows come home. If you watch any of the videos that are going around of Eliza Fletcher and the life that she lived, this was a tragic loss to the
Hmm.
community, not just because she was a billionaire heiress, but because, I mean, she was a billionaire heiress that was a school teacher.
Yeah, she was a school teacher.
You've worked in
Yeah.
education before. Would you work in education if you were a heir to a billionaire?
No, not
Yeah.
even a little bit. Not. I mean, I love teaching. Teaching is a great passion of mine. But if I had $1 billion and I didn't have to,
Yeah. Would you
I
work in
would spend
public
that. I
education?
would not. I
Or,
would not work in public
and
education.
I don't
No, I
know
would.
that she might have worked in private education, but she was an elementary education teacher.
Yeah, she taught babies for a living. That's what she
Right.
loved to do. She was, people will go, why is she running at 4 o'clock in the morning? Okay, and for those of you who don't know, people who are marathon runners this time of the year in the South, it's hot, and so it is not uncommon for. I'm not going to say us because I haven't run a marathon, but I have gotten up early to run because I'm a regular runner. It's
Yeah.
common for us to get up fairly early or wait till rather late in the evening when it's cooled off to go run. And you would think, hey, I'm running around a university at 4:30 in the morning. Certainly, I'm going to be safe, right?
Yeah. Have you heard someone say that? Why was she running at 4
Yeah,
something in the
absolutely. I've
That
heard a
is
lot of people be like, "Why
that
is she
is
running at 4
ridiculous.
o'clock?"
How stupid can you be? Why
Yeah,
are we not asking what is a criminal what is a sexual predator doing out on the prowl at 4:30 in the morning?
yeah. A man who should have clearly been behind bars. Who, I mean, after he had gotten in trouble with his previous record, and this is gonna. I'm gonna start the deeper conversation early. We under punish sexual criminals. We under punish them. Like was mentioned in the first episode, Jeff and I are both religious. I firmly believe that the reason the government has the power of the sword, according to Romans 13, is for them to use it.
Right.
I mean that is why God has given them that authority. And if you will kill or castrate these people who are going and being predators and going around and being menaces to society, if you will fix that problem, people will stop doing it. But
Right.
we're supposed to be high-minded and civilized. Well, we can be high-minded and civilized all we want to while these predators are out here um, wreaking havoc on our communities. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and that expands our conversation, which should be expanded to a broader national sense. And so, for those of you who are uninitiated, there's a big problem in America in general, particularly in big cities like Memphis, of criminality going unpunished. Arrests are made, and charges are brought, or put forth rather, but then charges are dropped relatively frequently. Sentences are shortened. Good behavior is given out like probably more frequently than it should be. In fact, in this case in Memphis, they just signed a bill in July after this shooter was let out, that if he had still been in prison in July, he would not have been able to get out after this bill, because the bill requires that certain felonies, those sentences be served to their full terms. And this guy was in for attempted murder. So that
Good
is
on
one of those
Memphis.
that is one of those felonies that you can't get out early in Memphis because like when you have performed such a felony.
Yeah, I mean, we know Memphis has had a crime problem for a past decade or more. As a matter of fact, we live in Mississippi, and I've heard several people, friends being from that area, tell me the reason we had castle doctrine, which everybody thinks of Mississippi being this deep red state. We've always carried guns. We've always done that. It's only been in my lifetime that we've gotten more loose with our gun laws. And there are many people who are of the opinion who say that the DeSoto County, which is the area just south of Memphis, which is in Mississippi, which basically serves as a suburb of Memphis, that they were lobbying for this castle doctrine so that the crime in Memphis would have less of a spillover effect. And for most portions, it's worked. I mean,
and
they go ahead.
it's been spilling over for a long time. So 10 years ago, 9 years ago, we lived in Jackson, Tennessee, which is not far from, it was about an hour from Memphis. And I mean, you talk to the community there, and just Jackson has gotten progressively worse,
Mm.
due to what they attribute to the spillover of crime from Memphis.
Yeah, but
Um,
if we had a broader national conversation here, it would be the fact that crime has been on the rise ever since COVID. We locked people away, didn't give them anything to do, paid them to sit home and do nothing, and so they went out and did whatever they wanted to. And
not just
and even
that,
in our small,
yeah, not just that, you give them anonymity.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
You
you
remember,
can cover up your face. Yeah,
yeah, you remember a year ago, jewelry stores started requiring you to not wear a mask in their stores
yeah. You
because there were,
cannot wear a mask in the store because people are coming in and holding jewelry stores up. We live in a small community, relatively safe. We very much have support our policing, but over the past 2 years, it's gotten really bad. It's gotten really bad, and I think that's something that everyone can understand, sympathize, and empathize with because it has gotten worse everywhere. And if we're going to fix that, not only does the policing have to be supported, but criminals have to go to jail for committing crimes.
right,
Or it,
which brings us back to the charges question. A lot of
mhm,
this stuff happens at the DA level.
mhm,
DA is a political position more often than not. You sort of vote for your district attorney, in most communities, and because of that, it is subject to manipulation from
mhm.
um, rich sources outside. Now, habitually, many people accuse you of anti-Semitism when you bring up this particular name, but and it makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist. But when enough stuff is true, sometimes you sound like a conspiracy theorist. George Soros spends a lot of money in getting this kind of DA elected, and I don't have the facts with me on this, but I believe that a Soros-funded district attorney was recently put in place in Memphis within the
I
last
haven't looked
election
at that. I
cycle.
don't know.
Yeah,
I've never even thought to look at that because I mean I think it's Memphis. It's right up the road from us.
I
I don't think
heard that it
about that.
was. I should have looked into it. I didn't, and I'm not gonna. My keyboards are loud. I'm not gonna look it up right now. But if that is true, let's just say if this has a big impact, because these district attorneys make it a part of their platform that they simply do not prosecute crime to the level that the community expects, the community needs.
Hmm.
And they pass this off as some sort of racial justice.
Yeah.
Um, but the reality on the ground is that you are favoring criminals over your citizenry. And this is why, I mean, like we 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 look at big cities like Memphis, Chicago, as danger hotspots in
Hmm.
maybe otherwise um, safe states. But I mean, the entire state of California has adopted this model, and people are leaving in droves.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Seattle has been really bad to the point that most of Washington um, is affected. Um, you know,
Baltimore is awful. Baltimore is
Baltimore's been
terrible.
awful for as long as I've been alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean is a spillover effect from DC.
Yeah.
Um, DC is bad. So you put in place these DAs that won't prosecute crime, that will give lenient sentence, that will fight for lenient sentences. Keep in mind the DA is the prosecutor. If you
Hmm.
have not the defender, not the defense
Yeah.
attorney, if you have the prosecutor fighting for a reduced sentence, well, the defense attorney is obviously fighting for an even further reduced sentence. So, um,
It equals more criminals on the street. It's an
right,
equation that equals more criminals on the street, and it's all under the guise of criminal justice reform. Well, they're actually taking the term justice out of criminal reform. It's criminal reform, letting criminals walk the streets
yeah,
freely, and it's really doing damage to the cohesiveness of our country. It is creating a lot of social turmoil, and I frequently visit Memphis. You frequently visit Memphis. I will do less so now
Yeah, I hate
because
Memphis.
of things like this.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, if anybody's listening from Memphis, I'm sorry. I hate your city. Like, I just don't like it. But if you cannot protect your people from the predations of violent criminals, then you are not serving your function as a government.
absolutely,
Uh, and
that's what government is for, to protect the people. That's there.
right, that is your primary function. Regardless of all this other crap that you think that you're supposed to be doing with your power, the basic necessity for your existence is the protection of your citizenry. And the people of Memphis are not protected right now.
No.
Their mayor is a Democrat. He is supposedly liberal, but he is fighting he appears to be fighting for more stringent measures. And
Well,
like I
he
said,
lost so much population to the suburbs as it is. If you had a choice between living in Germantown and Memphis, where would you live?
oh yeah,
The suburbs of Memphis, including North Mississippi, but also Arlington, Germantown, Cordova, all those places. People are living there and driving into Memphis if they have to. People are figuring out, since virtual work, hey, I don't have to do that anymore. So he's trying to keep it city
yeah,
and taking criminals off the street, put them in behind bars. That's how you do it.
yeah. So it's city management 101.
That's right.
And if you're letting evil funders of chaos and anarchy to sway the politics in your city, you need to be aware of that, and you need
That's
to
right.
be putting a stop to it. Barring that, you probably just need to leave. Um, yeah, I think we need to start having serious conversations with regards to some of these bluer areas, let's say,
Mhm.
where there comes a point like you can't turn the tide.
Yeah.
You need to
Get out.
get to safety.
Protect your family. Like I have a general rule. I carry a gun just about everywhere I go. I'm a strong advocate for the Second Amendment. Um, but I will not go places where I feel like I have to have a gun to go. Like,
Yeah,
if I feel like I'm not safe unless I'm carrying my firearm, I don't go to those places. And Memphis is
yeah,
now on that list, and it's because I got to protect my family. If I'm going somewhere where I feel like I have to carry a gun to protect my family, I don't need to be there. So if you're living in one of those places, you don't have to. You don't have to go protect your family. Go somewhere else.
right.